Hey, Chick-fil-A South Roads team, thanks for joining me on another leadership series. Today I want to talk to you about the idea of dealing with conflict management. Now, as a leader or as a team member, we hope that we create environments where people just get along and no one gets frustrated with one another. But I'm reminded of something that my pastor once shared to me, and he said that when we take imperfect people and we put them in an imperfect environment, there will be conflict. It is natural and it's to be expected. And conflict isn't a bad thing in and of itself. It actually is something that, if handled correctly, it can help us grow stronger and move forward with better understanding and a better appreciation of others. Now, when conflict happens, there's really three ways that people usually react to conflict. Number one is some people just avoid it altogether. They avoid the people that they have conflict with. They tend to go to others and talk to them about it. So maybe it's talking to a friend, talking to another leader, but they tend to avoid the person that they're having conflict with. Now, why is that dangerous? Is that you might feel that you are sharing your feelings and getting your feelings out there, but what you're doing is you're going around the other person and you're creating long-term tension that might be built up with that individual or that party, and so that can begin to build and build until finally it can almost overflow and explode in an unhealthy manner, right? So we want to not just avoid people. Now, the second thing that people could do is that they tend to actually face people, but they don't handle the conflict in an appropriate way. And so why would that happen is sometimes we go and something happens and it frustrates us. And so in the adrenaline and in that moment, we go and we confront somebody, but we don't handle it very well because we're very emotional and we have a lot of adrenaline pumping and we say things that we may regret, or we don't think out properly what we want to discuss. Sometimes it can happen because we surprise people. Like, we don't let them know that, hey, I need to address something with you, and we just go and confront them in the moment, and they're not even prepared to have that type of conversation at that time. Or sometimes we can get defensive, right? So people come and confront us, and then all of a sudden we want to get so defensive that we push people away, or we don't even enter into conversation with them around what is going on. Or the third way that we can handle conflict is that we can actually face it, we can lean into it, and we can handle it in a way that is that helps us grow and to help us to learn and help us to move forward in a productive way, right? And so when you think about how do we want to handle conflict, of course we want to handle it in a mature and appropriate and a productive way. And so it's important for us to know, how do we handle conflict when it comes, right? The reality is we're not going to be able to avoid conflict. We know that conflict's going to happen within the organization at some point. So it's not how do we avoid conflict, but it's how do we handle conflict when it arises and handle it in a way that is beneficial to all people involved. So when we think about handling conflict in an appropriate way, there's really 4 steps that I want you to focus on that I think will help you to better manage conflict when it arises and to move forward. The first thing is to start with the heart. What do I mean by starting with the heart? It's really to evaluate your own heart and say, why do I feel like this conflict's happening? What is it about this conflict that truly bothers me deep down inside? Or what could it be that is bothering somebody else? Is it the fact that maybe I felt that I was disrespected? Could it be the fact that maybe I felt like I wasn't, consulted in a decision? Or was it something that had to do with that I was harmed emotionally or physically, or something happened? Like, what is it at the very core that is making me frustrated or upset in a situation, or could be the cause of a conflict? I think when we understand that, we don't go in shooting accusations. We really go in knowing, okay, I know what I want to try to resolve in this conflict. I know that there's this feeling or this uneasiness that is being caused that I want to address, and we can go in more objectively, entering that conversation. And really, that's what it's about, right? When you think about conflict management, it's about going into dialogue, entering into great dialogue with an individual so that you can come to the right resolution. Okay, so when we know what is causing the conflict, or what we believe might be causing a conflict, now we need to make sure that we make it safe. We need to create a safe environment for people to enter into dialogue. Now, Now, what are things that we can do to create a safe environment? Number one, it's to physically create a safe environment. So we want to make sure that we're addressing people in situations where they feel safe. We're not cornering them. We're not isolating them. Sometimes you might even need to invite a third party, another individual to come in and who's objective and neutral to the situation, who can hear both sides and help you guys to enter into safe dialogue. You need to make sure that even in those situations that you're not raising your voice, you're not leading with emotion, but you're really going in a peaceful manner when you're entering into the conversation. We also want to make sure that we're not playing the victim or the villain in these situations, right? We don't want to go into the situation where we say, oh, well, I can't believe that this would happen to me, and I can't believe that this is how it's happening to me, right? You don't want to create the situation where you're the victim and nothing you can do is wrong. And at the same time, you don't want to go in accusing someone of just being the villain. Like, I can't believe you would do this, or I can't believe that this is the way that you would handle this situation, as if everything is someone else's fault. When you do that, you don't create a safe environment for people. So we want to make it safe. And once we create a safe environment, then we want to make sure that we share our perspectives. We want to make sure we share each other's perspectives and learn from what the other person is thinking. A few things that you need to think about when you're sharing your perspective is to separate fact from emotion, right? Take away your emotional side of all the emotions that are going on and how you're feeling, and really lean in on the facts. Like, what actually happened that is causing frustration or causing challenges? Not just like, well, I felt like you did this, or I felt like you did, but like, what specifically? Lean on the facts and utilize the facts to enter into this dialogue. The other thing I would say is seek first to understand before being understood. Make sure that you take the time first to listen from their perspective. Are there things that maybe they felt or they noticed, or things that they observed that maybe you didn't pay attention? Try to understand what they're seeing first, and then share your perspective. And from there, you can have both perspectives, so you can really try to get to the fourth step, which is really moving to action. We really want to figure out, okay, now that we understand each other's perspectives, usually that clears up 90% of the conflict that we have. We just realize, hey, this was a misunderstanding, or I didn't realize that what I did caused this type of reaction in you, or I didn't realize that's the way that you're coming about it, and maybe I could have seen that from a different perspective. When you begin to understand each other's perspective, you can now move to action and create a plan moving forward. Hey, what behaviors do I need to change, or what behaviors might you want to change that can help us to avoid these type of conflicts moving forward? I would challenge you in these situations, you want to look for a win-win situation, right? There's very few times that you're going to go into a conflict where one party is completely in the right and one party's completely in the wrong. Usually there is a combination of both parties having some valid points and both parties actually doing some things that may have caused the conflict. And so when you look for a resolution, we're not asking for one person to completely change and one person to stay the same. Usually you're going to look for a win-win situation that says, hey, what are some of the adjustments that I might need to make, and what are some of the adjustments maybe that you need to make, where we can have a resolution that is beneficial for both parties involved. Again, our goal at the end of the day is to enter into dialogue. So when conflict arises, not if, but when conflict arises, we can handle it in an appropriate and a productive way that helps us to grow stronger and to move forward. And how do we do that? Remember, we start with the heart. We know what is the core, what is driving the conflict within me, within others. What are we trying to resolve in this conflict? We want to make it safe. We want to create a safe environment. We want to use safe words and safe feelings and emotions and safe tones in our voice that make it a comfortable place to have dialogue. We want to share our perspectives, so we want to make sure that we aren't just leading from emotion, but we're really using facts. We want to make sure we understand first before being understood. Really try to understand someone else's perspective first before you share your own perspective. And then number fourth, we want to move into action, right? We want to create a win-win situation and move to the action steps that will help us to move forward. If you do that, I truly do believe that when conflict arises, you're going to be able to take it head on, and you're not going to see conflict as a negative thing, but you're actually going to see it as a healthy thing that helps you to grow, that helps you to get to learn more about people, and to move forward and to grow stronger as a team and as a leader. So thank you for leaning in to your growth and development at Chick-fil-A. Thank you for leaning into conflict within the business and addressing it head on so you can create an environment for our team that people feel honor, dignity, and respect.